Ramadan Kareem to all, quoting words of Matthew Fryer. With every roadblock, a detour is built. With every ending, a new beginning is defined. Embracing a challenge makes life interesting, but overcoming them makes life meaningful. And here we are, assembled after 2 long years, meeting face to face for our first physical CPE event. Pandemic has taught us several different lessons to each one of us. We have overcome hurdles, whatever the time has thrown before us. In words of Haruki, when you come out of a storm, you are no longer the same person who went in. With this positive note, I request the members of the Managing Committee of Muscat ICI and the guests to kindly come forward for lighting the lamp. Thank you for joining us for this auspicious movement. As we all know, this is the first event after the MOU renewal signing of the renewal of MOU between Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, ICI, and College of Banking and Financial Studies, CBFS. And also the first physical event, a fresh start. Any fresh start is a journey. It's a new or changed mindset. Let us all embark together for this journey for mutual benefit, adding value to each one of us, sharing knowledge and expertise, leaving behind all the negativities. With this, I would request CA Ravi Deora, Chairman of Muscat ICI Chapter, to kindly welcome all.
Dear members, respected past chairmen, respected guests, Dr. Fatin, Dr. Rajesh, and my dear friends, wish you all a Ramadan Kareem. As rightly said, that all the new beginnings, after the hurdles, we need to start the new beginnings, and this is new beginning. At the outset, I wish all of you for your patience and the support which you extended to us during the last few months. And we are happy to announce, and which is already announced, that with the support from the Indian Embassy, ICA leadership, CBFS, past chairpersons, and we had our MOU signed between the ICA and the CBFS, and we are back to normal now. It's a happiest moment for me to welcome you on this first CPA event after the renewal of the MOU. We have requested the Dean and the President Sir to join the event virtually, but due to some of the prior commitments, they could not join. But they have shared their best wishes with us and congratulated and best wishes to the chapter for starting the physical activities of the chapter. So we are also grateful to the Dr. Rajesh and Dr. Fatin for accepting our request to be part of this today's event. Thank you, ma'am. Uh, Thank you very much for joining this event. Today's topic is Islamic Fintech, and Dr. Fatin has actually done a detailed research on this topic, and definitely she will enlighten us on the topic of the subject. So I will not take you to the subject, but before because there's a sort of time, so I conclude, I want to make few announcements. Indian Embassy is come up with a Seva Utsav 2022, wherein various efforts are being taken by the Indian community. I request each one of us to wholeheartedly support this drive from Indian Embassy, And if any support is required, whatever way you can do, you can go to the Indian website and help the Indian community. Registration link for the World Congress is already there in the World Congress accounts website, and everybody members are requested to block their seats for World Congress of Accountant, which will be held on 18th of November 2022. And we request all of you to actively participate in this particular Congress of Accountant. We'll give you more details about this in the later part of the event. We are actively looking at a membership drive, and we are working on the membership drive very actively. One of to restore the membership of ICA India as well as of ICA Muscat chapter. We request each and every one of you to update your details, like a name, address, details in the ICA Delhi website as well as ICA Muscat website. Also, do ensure that your membership is active at both the places to effectively continue our active support with the chapter. And we also urge the members to contribute the chapter with your articles and notes, which you can share, which we will be publishing in the monthly newsletters for the members. And lastly, we all our activities are uploaded on the ICA Muscat chapter websites in the form of video links, photos. People are requested to join that website and actively take the benefit of the knowledge sharing which is there. And also the ICA Muscat chapter app, which was started in 2015, I believe, by before that. So which is also reactivated again. So people are requested to download that ICA Muscat chapter app, so that you can get it on your phone, the details. With this, I conclude my thing. Once again, I welcome you all for the today's event and happy learning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Reviji, for the warm welcome extended to everyone. Now, I request CA Jim Joseph, Secretary of ICI Muscat Chapter, to kindly welcome Mr. Rajesh Nayak to take us through the memory lane of our chapter.
Thank you, CA Ravi, for this opportunity. So, since this is the first activity and I have been associated with the chapter for long, so CA Ravi felt that it would be good to just go down memory lane through a few photos capturing the progress of the chapter. Now, in fact, perhaps some members would recall that there was a chapter earlier here between 1989 and 1992. Not, of course, not under the sponsorship of CBFS. There were two chairmen, M.M. Shipchandler and Rajmal M. Parak, known popularly as R.M. Parak. Okay. Then subsequently, for reasons which we do not know, the chapter ceased to be functional. And then in 2007, by then the regulations had changed and every professional chapter was required to have a local sponsor. Okay. So a group of chartered accountants tried their best to revive the chapter, and this historic day, 14th January 2008, was when the MOU was signed for the present edition of the chapter. Okay, you can see there, some of the people might be familiar to you. Nagnath Pai, who was then in PwC, CA Davis Kallukaran, whose Herculean efforts played a key role in the starting of the chapter, and Dr. Ashraf Naban Al-Nabani, the Dean of CBFS, Mr. Iqbal Ali Kamis Al-Lawati, who was Chairman of the Board of CBFS and Senior Vice President of CBO, His Excellency Anil Wadhwa, Ambassador of India to Oman, Mr. E. Ahmad, who was then the Minister for External Affairs. So some of the dignitaries who are there, apart from some leading industrialists like Mr. Konji, you can see there. So this was the historic moment on 14th January 2008. Yes, the first MOU was for 3 years, and in 2011, the MOU was renewed upon its expiry. And at that time, I managed to get the approval of our chairman, Mr. Iqbal Ali Kamis, whom you saw in the first photo. We got special approval to make the MOU for 5 years. This is the only one of the 5 sponsored chapters of CBFS which has an MOU for 5 years. All the other chapters, the MOUs are for 3 years. I told the chairman about the stature of ICI as a professional body, and he agreed as a special case that it will be renewed for 5 years. And once it is renewed, then you have precedent. So we kept on renewing it for 5 years. Here you can see again Dr. Ashraf Naban Al-Nabani, our dean, one of the greatest people I have ever met. I all hold him in the highest esteem. And you can see Mr. Avat Kishore also, and Mr. P.R. Subramaniam, C.A. Anuradha. And of course, the young lady who's going to speak today, she was much younger then, Dr. Fatin Zadjali at the extreme left, and Mr. Harshendu Shah, Mr. Kishore Rabbi, and C.S. Subramanian. Okay. That was on May 31st, 2011, that the MOU was signed for 5 years. Our previous dean, Dr. Ahmad Al Ghassani, and myself had the pleasure of visiting ICI HO on invitation when we were in Delhi for an international conference, and we were warmly welcomed. And then Chairman N. Sridhar also had specially come down for the meeting. CA Manoj Fadnavis, who was president of ICI then, warmly welcomed us. This was on September 23rd, 2015. Of course, just one point I forgot to mention, just out of historical interest, the president of ICI who signed the first MOU was Sunil Talati. And in 2011, it was G. Ramaswamy was the president of ICI who signed the MOU. And on December 23rd, 2016, the MOU was again renewed for a period of 5 years. You can see CA Mubin Khan, CA Asta, and our dean, previous dean, Dr. Ahmad Al Ghassani also there. The president who signed the MOU for renewal from ICI was Devraj Reddy. He could not come down, but he had deputed an official to go over here to participate in the signing ceremony. Okay, so this was on December 23rd, 2016. From there, the wheel came full circle, and very recently on March 31st, 2022, we again had the renewal. Our Dean, Dr. Zaran Al-Salti, signed the MOU. And this time, of course, the president of ICA signing it was Dr. Debashish Mitra. Okay. And CA Ravi was there, and the whole team, and all of us were there. It was truly a momentous occasion where 7 out of 10 past chairmen of the chapter who are still in Oman were present there. The other 3 could not participate due to unavoidable reasons. So we have now reached a stage where with all, as they say, the Josh is still there among the team, and with all Josh, they are getting ready to launch their new activities. Recently, we have written to the chapter permitting them to hold events in physical form. Okay, we have said that whenever CBFS venues are available, we will be happy to continue to provide it on pro bono basis to the chapter as a token of our support. But wherever it is not available, like for example, today now during Ramadan, the college closes quickly, so it can be held in an external venue with all precautions. Okay, and as I conclude, one last thing, just to test your memories. Okay, how many chairmen has the chapter had up till now? Anybody? How many? Since you should see you should have listened to my words carefully. I said 7 out of 10 who are still in Oman. Okay. Very good. Excellent. 14. Okay. Now let us see if you can remember collectively the names of all the 14. This is my concluding wrap up. Okay. Then the first one. Very good. First one was Davis Kallukaran. Okay. So he was the first chairman in this second edition of the chapter. By whom was he succeeded? Number 2. Excellent. Number 2 was CA Yashpal Mehta, very warm and friendly person. Sadly for us, he has now left Oman and gone back to India, but his, memories are always with us. We remember him. Okay. Then number 3, very good, excellent again. I think I will not have to strain my memory. You will provide all the answers. So number 3 was Avat Kishore, who was then the financial controller at OTE. Number 4, Kishore Rabbi, again not here with us. He has gone back to India. We always remember him also. Okay, he was in Oman Cement at that time. Okay, number 5. Yes, he was known more by his initials, just like MGR and NTR. You had PRS. Okay, so see, PR Subramanian was the 5th chairman of the chapter. Okay, we will not mention to him that his name was in threat of being forgotten because his year was a very activity filled year. Okay, yes. Number 6. Yes, how could you forget? Woman power had to make its presence felt, and CA Anuradha was the 6th chairman of the chapter. Okay, number 7. Very good. CA Umesh Kumar was the 7th president, and the coincidence was, I was joking with him that he takes the 6th chairman's name several times in a day because she happens to have the same name as his wife, who is also a chartered accountant. So CA Umesh was the 7th chairman. Number 8. Very good. CA N. Sridhar was the 8th chairman of the chapter. He was chief internal auditor in the Ajit Kimji group. Okay. Number 9. Yes, I was about to give a clue saying, what is common between him and Amir Salman and Shah Rukh, but you have preempted me by. So his name is Khan, none other than CA Mubin Khan. Okay. And I must remember his efforts last time when the MOU was about to expire. He did Herculean efforts to ensure that things went on smoothly and the renewal happened smoothly. So that is why you see him in that photo on December 23rd, 2016. Yes, the 10th one. Very good. See, Asta Rangan, by her own claim, we will not dispute it. She is the youngest of all the 14 chairpersons of ICAI. Okay, so we will not dispute it by asking her her age. Okay, number 11. Yes, CA Ravi, you're looking everywhere except next to you. The answer was right next to you. Okay, it is CA Bhavani Prasad. Perhaps the quietest chairman, but his activities were second to none. Very soft spoken and quiet, but his year was as much an activity filled year, if not more than anyone else. Yes, number 12. Very good. Her crooning skills have earned her the title, much deservedly, of Nightingale of the chapter. So, see, Ashwini Savrikar was the 12th chairman. Number 13. By then, the pandemic had struck. Yes, CA Ramanand Prabhu, number 13. Although that number is considered unlucky, we remember him for his efforts during the pandemic. He moved to virtual mode, and we saw a lot of activities from the chapter during that time. And number 14. Yes, the ever towering, ever smiling CA Ravi Diora. So that is the Hall of Fame of the chairmanship of the chapter. With this brief presentation, yes, you have to say something? Yeah, with this brief presentation, I will conclude now. I hope that you found it informative and enjoyable. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rajeshi, for the beautiful going down the memory lane of the chapter. So here we are in the next part of our today's event. Dreams are renewable. No matter what our age or condition, there are still untapped opportunities within us, and new beauty is awaiting to be born. Let us tap on all such opportunities today by gaining awareness and knowledge from the speaker of today, Dr. Fatin Zadjali, on Islamic Fintech. May I request CA Shilpa Pawani, Treasurer of ICI Muscat Chapter, to kindly come forward and welcome and introduce Dr. Fatin Al-Zadjali.
Thank you, CA Sangeeta. A Ramadan Kareem to all of you here. It is my great honor to welcome our esteemed speaker of the day, Dr. Fatin Al-Zadjali. I know that she needs no introduction to our chapter members, but it's my pleasure to say a few words to formally introduce her today as the speaker of the day. Dr. Fatin is the acting Assistant Dean for Academic Support and Student Affairs and Head Islamic Finance at CBFS. She began her career as a banker, working in the investment banking division of two of Oman's biggest banks. She later joined the CBFS and rose through the ranks to become an academic and trainee faculty member. She holds a bachelor's degree in business administration from Australia, a diploma in banking from IBFS, an MBA from the University of Strathclyde at UK, a PhD in Islamic finance from INCF in Malaysia. She also has various training related certifications such as Certified Training Professional, Creative Train the Trainer, NLP for Trainers, besides being a certified Islamic banker. Her areas of training expertise are behavioral skills, Islamic banking, social and green finance. She has delivered trainings on Islamic finance qualification, the IFQ, CISI, the Islamic finance products, the Islamic finance contracts, and Sharia issues in Islamic finance. The Central Bank of Oman, Mitak, Bank Muscat, and other local banks are some of the clients for whom she has provided training. Dr. Fatin has worked to develop an sustainability indicators for the CIMB Bank project, Malaysia, in collaboration with the INCF fraternity. Dr. Fatin was the vice president of the research club at INCF for 2 years. She is currently publishing a paper on the impact of COVID-19 on the GCC stock market, the risks and returns of Sharia and non-Sharia compliant stocks. She has previously addressed our members in various occasions and has been a well-wisher of our chapter over the years. She was instrumental in ensuring that we were able to celebrate the International Women's Day this year in March at CBFS in such a grand manner. So we'll always be thankful to you for that. And of course, Dr. Rajesh and CBFS. We are immensely grateful to Dr. Fatin for graciously accepting our invite to facilitate today's session on Islamic Fintech, and eagerly look forward to your session, Dr. Fatin. The floor is all yours. Please come. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, everyone. First of all, I have to thank the organizer, ICAI Muscat chapter, specifically the chairman, Mr. Ravi Diora, for the invitation. I'm really honored to be here, and I'm very excited to speak to one of the topics that are very significant to me because I changed career due to the fact that I wanted to know more about Islamic finance and how it is impacting our economy and society today. So I did this talk previously 1 year ago to the chapter in which I have explained about Islamic finance. But today I'm explaining Islamic fintech, which is a very different concept. The same principles, but a very different concept. I actually remember the first time when I have done the Islamic finance workshop last year is that there were many questions about the similarity of the benchmark rate, which is the interest equivalent to the profit rate in Islamic banking institutions. And I agree to a certain extent that there should be a very different benchmark. Today, I'm going to explain the power of technology and how we can make the social impact meaningful, seen, tangible, and different than what we are seeing at the moment. So in today's outline, I'm going to speak a little bit about what is fintech in general, financial technology, the evolution of fintech. I'm going to take the concept of Brett King, which is the author of the book Bank 4.0, in which he explains about the evolution and the different developments done in the financial services industry, and why Islamic finance or Islamic fintech, why it is so significant, and what are the promises this system delivers, specifically knowing the limitation of the capitalist system. And I'm not speaking this because I have, criticism against it, but in fact, Western economists such as Piketty, the author of many books on economy, in which he says that what's happening to the world, why poverty rate is increasing. In fact, in pandemic, the poverty is becoming extreme poverty. We have millions and billions of people who are living under $1.9 a day. So shocking. What is happening, and what are the different solutions we are having at the moment? So let me explain what's happening in the world when it comes to digital payments. Today, there is a lot of happenings. Approximately half of the 2016, this is 2016, so basically, I'm talking about 6 years ago, if or even more. 3.9 trillion bill pay market, housing, utilities, taxes, insurance, loans transacted digitally. So this means that the estimate for this year is going to be an increase of 75% in the digital bill payment. And I believe that you agree on this, because the tremendous growth in the digital bill payment means that the banks and other financial institutions need to take note what's happening. Unfortunately, banks are a little bit laggards in this particular, innovation, making the investments in technology. It seems that we have to again go back and change the mindset and culture and intrigue the thinking when it comes to what's happening and how the banks can make use of the new technologies. Chatbots are being used. This is only one in the ecosystem. I'm going to explain one by one. I'll try to make this quick and concise because I know I'm taking some of your time and away from the food. So I'll try to make it very concise. So this is the evaluation outturns of the payment market capital versus the bank's market capital, and you will see here the variance in the digital payments. PayPal around 220 billion, and look at the comparison with the banks. I mean, JP Morgan 311 billion. It seems that with time this is becoming very, very close, and the banks need to think what is exactly I need to do to ensure that I'm not losing to the fintech market, and integrate it within my business model and ensure that I'm offering something of value to the consumers, because consumers are looking for less intermediation costs, more convenience, speed, specifically the millennials. They want everything, tak, 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 immediate. And you have daughters and sons, and fighting to their attention every day is becoming something very difficult. Don't you agree? I see nodding head. I'm with you on this. So this is the Islamic fintech ecosystem, and I like this chart because it speaks about the intermediation. It's not only the what's available in the Islamic fintech ecosystem, but the intermediation is Islamic finance have built this partnership model with the consumers. So it's no longer borrower lender, in which you are taking the depositor's money, making your profit, and voila, you move forward and you make your profits every single year this way. The partnership model says that you should have more of a risk appetite. And this is the counter argument that I had last year, in which there is no difference actually between Islamic banks and the conventional ones. But technology says that there will be a change on this, because not only we have payments, which are less in intermediation cost and transfers, we have something called crowdfunding. And if you think this is not coming to Oman, have you heard about the crowdfunding regulation under the Capital Market Authority? In fact, I met the startup themselves, and they want interns from CBFS, and they want to create a roadshow. I told them not this May, everybody would be traveling. So September they are coming. Different kind of models available through fintech. So we have the payment platforms, very successful. I anticipate that between 1 year, I will see the youngsters doing their payments using mobile apps. And even I was discussing with my students today, I don't know if you know this, but Bill Gates mentioned about the payment system that is already, you have a tag tattooed. So I told them that probably the next question you have to go for the mufti is whether tattoo is halal or haram, because in our religion there is a question about this. So this is the next question, millennials probably will go and ask the ifta and sharia scholars on this. It's a really very different business model. We have different contractual agreements in Islamic finance. When it comes to the integration of Islamic finance principles, it is always under a contractual agreement. So it is not based on giving cash and outflow of cash, which creates inflation and all of the things that the capitalist system is really suffering from now, the inflation, the interest rates, the imbalance of payments. I mean, you're mashallah in the accounting profession, you know this more than me. So Islamic finance wants to ensure that there is the poverty gap is linked, or we are actually reaching to the end consumers, the consumers who are suffering from lack of understanding to the requirements, to the illiteracy rate, to the fact that we are still talking about extreme poverty, although we have a plan. Remember the SDG 2030? So we have sustainability indicators and so forth. So Islamic finance comes in between with the ecosystem, with the digital remittance, impact investing. We have even green and blue securities. We call them sukuk, which is kind of Islamic bonds. We have fractional asset ownership and robo advisors. So the spectrum is huge. The opportunities is wonderful. And if I'm not talking only of Oman, I mean, just think of Indonesia. 230 million individuals live there. And by the time I'm speaking, they already have 7 digital banks. One of them is Islamic. Let us think of Oman. Now, millennials. I actually always ask my student, is it true you have 131 mobile use? Do you have one and a half phone? And they say, yes, we have one and a half phone. One is broken backup. Whenever I need it, I find it when the original one doesn't work. So this means this intensive use of technology. Whatever you do, those millennials are just glued to those devices. When it comes to the broadband access, 104%, this is only Oman, 75% fixed broadband access. So, and this is why we were able to deliver our content online for most of our students in the College of Banking. This means that it's working. And with this, an indication of how the payment system would be done in the future, and also the very interesting crowdfunding investment platforms. This is a brief of the evolution of the financial services. Now, the branch system has been invented in the 1472 by the Medicis in Italy. In Italy, sorry, we call it Italia in Arabic. So in Italy, when the first invention of a branch in which we have a structure, people come in and depositing money, having loans, the interest was invented at that particular time. Then the first ATM machine in 1980s to 2007, we were heavily reliant to go to a box and withdraw money. And in 2007, everybody knows what happened. Guess, somebody invented something in 2007. Technology related? Yes, exactly. Mobile, exactly. The smartphone. So basically, the smartphone made it interesting for us to do transactions in a very different way. So we actually were checking our balances at the time when the smartphone came. But now there is this full integration with artificial intelligence, where know your customer is becoming easier, where we have Central Bank of Oman having the mala'a, the credit worthiness, where you can actually have a credit assessment to your customer and know what is the whole portfolio of the customer, which is basing your risk assessment while you are giving your financing to that customer. And of course 2022, by default, COVID came and made us, if we are not technology literate, then if COVID came and forced us to really think about technology and how we can embed it forward. So when I say this, you'll probably say that let's go digital. Let's do everything digital. The platforms that bring one company here and over there, bringing focus groups and so forth. But the most important thing, yes, you do have the technology. And I liked so many people discussing this issue. We have technology, but technology is not the solution by itself. The solution is the value proposition you are bringing to the market. So if you're bringing a platform, now crowdfunding is becoming, it's very attractive, by the way, bringing investors in taken, it's like different platforms in the States, for instance, GoFundMe or Mighty Cause. Can you imagine we have something like this here? So think about it slowly a little bit, understand the market, and understand what is exactly needed for you, because technology is there, whatever languages you would like to use. Gap analysis, understand, do we need the payment system only? Do we need charity only? Do we need investment? What kind of investment we need here in Oman? Think about what the market wants so you can integrate and collaborate with it. And I have to mention, of course, the basic principles and differentiation of fintech and Islamic fintech. Now, in fintech, you are free to trade in everything. When it comes to Islamic fintech, however, you have to have an understanding of Sharia screening. Sharia screening means that there are certain industries that you're not allowed to enter. Sharia screening means that there are certain industries which are highly leveraged, which cannot also enter this particular market. We have a leveraging cap when it comes to the debt. And of course, the limitation in the industry type. The other thing with Sharia is the fact that we always insist on asset based. So when it comes to any customer who goes to any bank, if you would like to take cash as a loan, not possible. You have to tell me, what do you want to buy? So it has to be asset based. Do you want to buy a car? Give me your LPO. Do you want to buy a fridge? Give me your LPO. So this as well comes into the picture. And the third very important difference in Islamic fintech is the fact that we love risk sharing. We're not risk shifters. And apologies to the bankers and everyone who's here. It's always the customer who takes the interest, and if he defaults, it's even more compounded interest. And we have seen what happened in several countries right now. Let me just mention a couple of examples. Lebanon now, amazing. I mean, what's happening, and it's a wake up call for us. Is this system is actually working? And if it's not working, even for those who skeptics about the Islamic financial system, hold that thought, because I have something coming up which is not related to Islamic, but it's very similar in the maqasid of the Sharia, in the legal maxims of Islamic finance. It's coming, and it's very relevant and similar. So continued with the challenges of the digital transformation, what we need to do is really go back a little bit, not full speed, go back a little bit, because you need to know what you are offering. You need the management to sign up with you. You cannot go like a guru and do every change alone. So step by step, set the ambitious goal, have your plan ready, have your team ready, and then launch your startup or fintech operation, whatever it is. Either it's a payment platform, or a challenger banker, or investment platform, or robo advisory. And I'm going to explain about robo advisory in a bit. But the fact is, we have to go slowly a bit to move forward, accelerated with momentum. If you don't do your homework and due diligence, then there is a high rate of failure in startups, actually. So the number one issues with the digital transformation is changing companies' culture. Some people still do not believe that fintech is happening. Some people think that it's something that will come and go. In the fintech spectrum, I'm speaking about the technology element in terms of transformation, and I speak also about the artificial intelligence element, in which you are actually predictive analytics. You are predicting what's happening, and also the cryptocurrency, the one that Islamic scholars argue a lot about. In fact, Indonesia banned cryptocurrency at the moment, and also China. So what's happening? There is a lot of discussions at the moment, but certainly this doesn't mean that we don't have a national digital currency, which of course the Emirates have launched. So crypto is quite interesting. I'm not going to go in details about it, but the fact is there is a lot of discussions at the moment and challenges in fintech, thinking beyond the campaign mentality, like riding something new, anything trendy. Changing the mindset, what you're actually offering, going back to the value. So these are very interesting times in which you have to really go back and think, what am I offering, and what is the market potential, and why Islamic finance and Islamic fintech? What is the market? How many people who are in this population? How many people interested in halal products? How many people interested in investment in Sharia compliant investments. And bear in mind that Sharia compliant investments are actually, in its true form, very pure. It could be a farm, and it could be any project that basically a lot of projects that you can invest in. So, and the market is there, the halal market is there, to the extent that some non-Muslim countries very interested to come and get halal certification. And I have seen it myself as a student in Malaysia for years. Koreans and Japanese come and learn some of the Sharia principles just because they want to enter into the Muslim markets, which is huge potential. So, Islamic fintech in a nutshell, what we are trying to do, facilitate things to people and do not make it hard for them, and give them good tidings, and do not make them run away from Islam. We have a phrase in Islam, an ayah, inna ma'al usri yusra. People think that Islam is limiting us. We are in a box, but it's actually the opposite. It's abundance. It tells you that there is a lot of things happening in the world and you'll get your chance. You just have to be patient. So the notion and the idea of why people think it is limiting is because of the different interpretation. And ask me about it, because I'm doing now a project for COMSEC, which is on the standardization of Islamic financial principles. We still, every country have a different standardization, so that's why we have a different idea. Every country interpret Islam in a different way. We cannot change that unless we come together. And now we are doing these steps as we are moving forward. So, why Islamic finance? It promotes and develops what is good. There is a very nice Arabic say. It is the transition from the halal to the tayyib. The tayyib means the good. All of us are good. We have well intentioned, and thinking about it. It's just that when I spoke about poverty, it's just that I think collectively we want to raise the standards of living for everyone. That's why we have the SDGs. And board objectives of Sharia is actually in alignment with these objectives of SDGs. Ask me about it. I'm the one who did a PhD called Developing a Sustainability Business Model for Omani SMEs. I have viewed 1,000 indicators of ESGs and sustainability of GRI, SASB, and of course B Corp and IRR. So I have noted that none of the ESG indicators are in contradiction to maqasid. So we are actually in alignment. We as humans, we have the same objectives. We just want to live and let live, in a very basic. So prevent and prohibit what is harmful, lift the harmful aspects. And I think wonderful, steps that the spiritual leader in India is doing when it comes to lifting the harm. I am myself a very big fan. I already told some of the ICI members how much I wish that we host him here today, which is Sanguru. I feel that he's doing wonderful for the rivers in India and for the environment and the culture. And this is exactly the whole objective, is lifting the harm. Islamic finance is about partnership. It's about communities. It's about societies. It's about bringing people. And we speak about this in circular economies, in green economies, and lifting the underprivileged and helping them. And there is a lot of initiatives at the moment. When I'm speaking in Ramadan, you will notice people who are donating, who are doing the zakat. And by the way, zakat is farida, meaning as I am praying today, it is something that I have to do annually. So, and it's not considered to be tax for me. It's purification of income. So promote justice, high moral, create society of investors, ensure wealth does not circulate among only the few rich. Remember the 2080 rule, and preventing the act of creating money through lending, because interest, and not because I said it, just read Piketty, in which he really mentions it's a vicious cycle. When we are going to get out of this, it is something that we have to think really. So this is a brief of the fintech verticals. We have to think about everything. The people who need financing, the blockchain. Blockchain is a wonderful smart contract, amazing peer-to-peer, platform. It makes smart contracts for specifically Islamic finance contracts easier. So most of the startups, Islamic fintech startups, use blockchain to ensure this homogeneity between them. Of course, RegTech, when we speak about fintech, we have to speak about regulation because this is something that makes us scratch our head. Is it legit? Is it reliable? If I send money through this channel, will it arrive to the third party? So there's a lot of questions, and I agree. Still, the infancy of fintech gives you a lot of questions, but it is working, and regulation is coming up as well. Personal finance, payment is very huge. PayPal, we have in Islamic fintech one called Halal Pay. So, and I'm going to give you a view of the spectrum of the Islamic fintech ecosystem. Capital markets, wealth management, money transfer, and remittances. I mean, now more than in any other age, you can transfer money with probably sometimes zero intermediation costs, which is amazing. Never thought that one day you will send money without having to pay anything, but it's happening and it will continue to happen. So, I'll give you a brief of this tree, the fintech tree or taxonomy of fintech environment, in which you have to have the technologies to ensure that the platform is ready to run. Once you have the platform ready to run, the policies are important to ensure that you are not in contradiction with the regulators. And with Islamic fintech, they have to deal with different regulations. It's not only the regulation or the jurisdiction of that particular country, but it's also the Sharia compliance scholars who would actually go back and see how you have built your product. Enabling technologies are very important, and then the fintech activities. And in particular, I like the crowdfunding element because this is where Islamic finance can really happen. I'll just give you an example. Beautiful Oman, very pretty, very lovely. We have beautiful climates all around Oman. Imagine we have one land. We don't have enough money for it. We would like to build it up. Our issue in Oman, if you have noticed, is we are always thinking food sufficiency, just in case any crisis happen and we are having a crisis of less food. So why don't we invest in a land and start growing very good crops? And if you think it doesn't happen, I just spoke to my husband, he's a veterinarian. He said in Oman we can grow even tropical fruits. I say, why people are not growing tropical fruits? I even one time when my father came, he gave me polomino, which is a Malaysian fruit. I don't know if you heard of it. It's like a grapefruit, very, very big, polomino. And I said, Father, how did you get this fruit? I only see it in Malaysia when I'm on the road. He said, no, from the farm. So it seems that we have a lot of potential in these crops. So we have the investors coming in, placing the money in these, whether it's vertical farms or farms, food security, clean food on your table, ensuring that you are in any crisis situation able to maneuver your way. So of course there is payment, which is very, very famous. I just shared the slide in which PayPal is really taking over, and as well other platforms. Now with crowdfunding, there are different kind of contracts on how do you do crowdfunding. There is the simple donation, there is the reward system, there is the investments, which is the sharing of the income and the equity. And this happens when you invest in a project, not anymore share. It's actually a tangible project that you can see and visit. And you will see the returns in the long term when it comes to these projects while you are selling these crops, or you're making these tourist investments, or you decided to invest in this beautiful land. Not because I'm Omani, I'm saying this, but I believe it's beautiful. So this is the Islamic fintech framework in a nutshell. We have the Give Them Protect, which is the kind of donation charity drive. We have the Waqaf and the Zakat and the Sadaqah. Now, Sadaqah is when you are giving without any obligation or any, you do not expect a return from that person. You just give it because you're helping. Zakat is something that is compulsory in Islam. As I said, as you are praying, you have to produce zakat. Waqaf is when you have a land not utilized and probably you would like someone to use it. Say, go ahead and use it. No need. This is waqaf. So this is few examples. And of course, we have the InsurTech. We have the Islamic Takaful, which is something that most of the Muslim investors insist on. And it is based on uqud al-tabarru'at, which is donation, actually. So we are standing with each other. If there is any problem happens to anyone, we are collectively helping that someone. So this is on the donation contract. We have Save and Invest, which is robo advisory. We have also pensions, asset management, challenger banking, and one of the most successful Islamic fintech startups called Kestrel in the UK, classified as challenger banking. And what does this brother does is, I forgot the name, the owner of Kestrel, he's doing something amazing. He's linking all the banks and payment platforms and even allow you to offset your carbon emission. So it's like a huge platform in which it does multiple transactions for you. Even if you would like to go to marketplace, it's only a diversion. You would go here and find different startups, like small medium enterprises that you can buy from. So it's like a e-commerce, payments, lending platform, plus the fact that you can see the ratings of these particular e-commerce platforms. We have also finance, which is the most demanded at the moment. And at the moment here in Oman, we actually have Al-Izz Bank signing an platform with IFN, in which you can go to Danube, the furniture company, select a couch, and you can actually do the creditworthiness immediately and take the couch on the same day. So this is one of the examples of what is happening actually in Oman when it comes to immediate access to finance through technology. Of course, in the other countries, this is happening already, like Indonesia, Malaysia, and other countries. So this is in a nutshell how the framework is working. At the end of the day, I know that I will receive questions like, how do we ensure that those startups are legit? How do we ensure that those startups are actually giving profit? In fact, when you start in any crowdfunding or payment platforms, there is a lot of questions, whether they are successful or not, whether they are reliable or not. And I agree with you. They are working in progress. Every day they are learning something. Remember that some of those startups are not even legal. For instance, in Indonesia, when I had one conference, they said we even have illegal platforms, and I was really shocked. Remember, this is also a part of the decentralized finance, so you'll have a lot of startups that are doing their thing, without having the system. But the community is interested to give the customer at the end of the day what he is expecting in terms of returns, because yes, you cannot give your money and someone work the magic and bring you returns every fixed returns. So what some of the brothers have done is something called sentiment analysis. And I wanted to show you how the news travels in the social media and how the stock market reacts to the news of these particular startups. But I thought that for time constraint, maybe at this particular session, I cannot discuss it, and it's working in progress as well. But it's a beautiful chart in which you can see if the news in the market is actually aligning with the actual performance of the company in the stock market. So this is one of the big issues in the Islamic fintech sphere, because one of the robo advisory startups or platforms received negative criticism in the US, and I can call its name because nobody, I think, would know it. I'll give it. It's called Wahed Investment. So there is a lot of criticism that it's actually not Sharia compliant. So and the US Security Commission is the one who stated that they are not Sharia compliant. Therefore, they had to go 2 steps back and redo the things that they have got a lot of notes on what exactly they are not compliant on. Because if you claim something, you have to deliver it and achieve it. And therefore, Islamic fintech, yes, it's work in progress. There is a lot of things happening. In Oman, we already have a crowdfunding platform coming, as I explained. And also we have payment platforms coming. I anticipate the millennials will be using their mobiles a lot. In Singapore, for instance, the taxi application requested licensing with Singtel, which is the equivalent of Omantel here in Oman. So now applications are requesting banking license. Can you see what's happening? It's really changing. Innovation is really leading the way. And if we're not, diligent or agile enough to understand this, we may be stagnant at the market. So yes, there are things that we need to focus on: credible and regulated, Sharia compliant and responsible, and recognized and celebrated. These are the platforms that we are looking forward for. And to just give you a brief of what's really happening in the world, even if it's not Islamic finance. If you hear of the word sustainable finance, it is in alignment with the maqasid. It is very much ESGs and disclosures and reporting, to the extent that even CEOs need to disclose their bonuses. We never heard this before, but now it is a very different case in which you have to disclose everything. So, with this, I thank you so much for your patience. I know I took a lot of your time, 30 minutes to be exact. I intend to dedicate the rest of the time for the Q&A session, and I like interactions. Ask as many questions as you like, and I hope that I can answer it, to your satisfaction, inshallah. Thank you.
I did a funding for a project, and it was funded through Islamic arm of one of the banks. I don't want to name the bank. And now when we review the documents, there are two clauses which I find it is more or less similar to conventional bank. So for instance, interest, they don't call interest, they call it as profit. But the terms and the calculations are all similar. Second, for delayed payments, we have penalties. They use the term charity. So I just really want to understand, how does it differ? Technically, if you are calling Islamic finance or Islamic banking, there has to be some difference. Otherwise, it is the same thing we are talking about.
I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you, brother. In fact, in the last session I had with ICI, one of the members asked me, it's like, pulling the air from a different. So, the thing when it comes to the match or the benchmarking of the interest rate and profit rate, brother, what happens is you also have a regulator. So, if I charge interest of a bank here 3% and over here 4%, there is withdrawal risk. So, the regulator will not allow this. So benchmarking with the interest rate, because it is universal by Sharia scholars, is considered to be fine. Having said that, it is important to understand that the Sharia scholars are working on a benchmark which is OIC countries, which is the Organization of Islamic Countries. They're working on it, and we do not want also to pass an expensive rate for the Muslim consumer, because there's already an article called paying a premium to reach heaven, which is not the case. It is not the case. So that's why, at the moment, profit rate and interest rate, if it's matching, so it is for a reason, and respecting the regulation and jurisdiction of that, country. With regard to your second question, regarding penalty, yes, if the customer is delayed in an Islamic bank, the Islamic bank would actually go back and see the actual damages of that delay. So if the actual damage in processing, they take the fee for them. So it is something that they can keep. The rest, they cannot take it unless they release it to charity. And to be honest, I'm a personal fan of this, mechanism. Because I believe the intermediation system at the moment, I did explain about poverty rate, about the capitalist system, about not even the Islamic scholars, but even the Westerners, the Europeans, speak about the vicious cycle of debt and leveraging, and it's not ending, So there is a part of the fee that needs to go to charity. And in Malaysia and Oman and any Islamic bank and any country that follows the Sharia, they actually do it. They provide those charities with those amounts. And I think it's wonderful. I mean, specifically in pandemic days when the underprivileged needs these funding.
So the difference what she explained, actually I understand. In conventional banking, penal interest will add to your top line. But in Islamic banking, this penal interest will go to charity. Because if there is no penal interest, then everybody will default. Because I remember one of the leasing companies I used to audit in 2009, and actually they had a product. And as auditor, we had pointed out that in your product, whatever, even if like some of the checks will bounce, you will not charge any penal interest. Actually, in that product, there was no penal interest. I mean, even when the customer was defaulting, this I am saying, I mean, when Islamic financing was still, yes, it was long back 2008-9. But in that product, it was not there. So as auditor, rather, we were suggesting them, if you keep like this, everybody will default, because they know that in under Islamic finance, actually bank will buy the asset and then sell it to you at a fixed profit. Now, even if you are not paying on time, they were not able to charge anything because it was fixed. So like I think this charity concept came, otherwise people will take advantage.
Exactly. We have to penalize the customer who is, not disciplined. I call it to my, I tell my students we have to discipline the customer because he will take advantage of you. And as a financial institution, Islamic finance is not a charitable organization. They would like to maximize shareholder value, but they would like to do it in a way that they consider society as well. So, and this is what sustainable finance is doing now. So it's quite interesting because there will be a shift in reporting, and I believe that already new standards about sustainability and ESGs is coming. That we need to reflect it now. So it's gonna be interesting to see how it goes.
Thank you very much for a fantastic session. See, we've been talking about Islamic finance, but the IOFI, the standards, which lays down, they have no standing in Oman. So, what's the future? When we talk about the Islamic finance, IOFI has to be played in compared to, I suppose, Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. And the other question, I suppose, is the insurance stack. You talk about the fintech, which covers the Islamic as well. What's the future for the insurance stack in Oman? So, if you can share your thoughts, please.
Yeah, certainly. IOFI is the accounting and audit organization for Islamic financial institutions. It is based in Bahrain, and they are responsible for standardizations. So it is actually the one that are setting up the public hearings, the updates on standards, and all of those different criterias and different standards. So I agree with you when it comes to IOFI. There are countries that follow IOFI, just to let you know. Like, for instance, Malaysia do not follow IOFI. Oman, we are following IOFI to a certain extent, specifically the accounting standards for Islamic banks. There is, interestingly, Mr. Khan, right? Mr. Khan, that I'm doing a project at the moment with COMSEC regarding the standardization of Islamic financial, the rulings and all of the standards. So at the moment, yes, we have noticed that there are differences, and that is because of the different school of thoughts and interpretation. As I said, there are different jurisdictions which follow different school of thought. So this creates non-harmonization of Islamic financial institutions. And at the moment, IOFI is trying to gather all of the scholars at one particular platform to get the consensus in terms of the new standards. And I'm really glad to inform you that, in fact, one of the mashayikh of Oman is a member of IOFI. And this is like a new addition because in Oman we follow a different school of thought. Sheikh Kahlan is a member of IOFI. So having, different school of thoughts in one platform ensures that standardization is happening. They are very responsible as well and active, IOFI. Any public hearings, they will tell you, come please and join us. And now with technology and online, you can check their seminars. I have to agree with you to a certain extent that they should do more in terms of communication to the major stakeholders. I think that we will see progress hopefully in future. They're trying their best, and even in CBFS, we are sponsoring their public hearings. It's only after pandemic that they were doing online, so they are responsible enough to come and spread the knowledge. With reference to your second question and takaful industry is very interesting here in Oman, and the Capital Market Authority is regulating it at the moment. I foresee a very, active future for the Omani market because, as you are also an insurance background, Mr. Khan. So you have noted that us, for instance, when I go to Malaysia, if I would like to travel to Indonesia, I would actually buy a package for travel insurance. Here, the retail market is still undertapped. And with the Taka Tech, I think it's going to be huge. I mean, can you imagine I buy the package before I leave? And, the retail market, it's a big opportunity. But then convincing the consumer in Oman that this is legitimate is another thing. So you have to do your due diligence. You have to do your awareness. Tell them that this is halal, it's Sharia compliant. You have to do your something called risk mitigation. You cannot go, and go to a country and suddenly your baggage didn't come and khalas. I remember one of my friends told me that she went to Australia and she got a call that her father got a heart attack. So she couldn't continue. She said, I have to go back. So she went back, no question asked. No question asked. She went back to Malaysia. She did at the airport. She booked her ticket to go back. So because she did this retail small fee of insurance, travel insurance, the company returned back her ticket money. And it's amazing when you are traveling and doing your transactions, whatever you are doing, with peace of mind. So I think that Takatech can tap the retail market. There is a lot of potential, specifically in, the crisis management. We are dealing with a lot of climate change at the moment. I don't know when the takaful companies will start to build, car shelters. I'm looking forward for car shelters. Actually, it's a good idea. And of course, the medical as well, insurance, it's very important. There is a lot of potential. I believe that with CMA, the objectives and strategic direction is going to be quite clear in a few years time, inshallah.
Yeah, yeah, the business model in BNPL or embedded finance will work in compliance with the Sharia laws, because the main source of income for them is the interest part that they charge for the finance.
Okay.
So whether it is a D2C or a B2B embedded finance, so how that works with Sharia finance.
Certainly. Well, in Islamic finance, we have certain rulings that we have to adhere to. When it comes to what I mentioned about the Danube example, the IFN product with Al-Iz. So it's me as a customer. I go to Danube. I immediately look at a couch, very interested. I use my mobile. Already, Mala'a is there, which is the Central Bank of Oman. Know your customer. They know who I am. They know the kind of loans that I have taken. And then, of course, there is something called robo advisory, in which all the criteria are already built up. So they know that this product is legitimate enough. It is not included in the red light. So if it's red, if I go for a casino, for instance, I cannot immediately red flagged, and I cannot complete the transaction. So after that, you have of course, the final approval. So when all the ingredients through the blockchain technology is provided, you have the criterias, you have the product, you have the merchant screening, you have the customer screening, you have all of them streamlined, and with blockchain now it is possible, then you can make the transaction smoothly. In fact, IFN states that you can get immediately the couch on the same day within 1 hour. And this is in Oman here through Al-Iz Bank. So this is one example of the power of technology. I believe that in future we'll see this happening. Maybe we have seen only 1, 2 examples, but I mean, I heard about buy now, pay later. So I think it's coming, specifically with the economic conditions, and people who would like to have credit as and when they would like to have it, and pay, later on. I hope that I answered your question.
The international rating agencies, are they aligned with Islamic financing and Islamic fintech?
Actually, it is working in progress. When I mentioned about sentiment analysis, ecosystem of Islamic finance, I wanted to share with you one slide, but because of the less time, it includes the whole ecosystem of Islamic finance in terms of companies operating, and there are many. The critique that I always mention whenever I am in an Islamic fintech is the ratings. So thank you for asking this question. And in fact, one of my colleagues, Rushdie Siddiqui, who is a Pakistani US citizen, told me, Fatin, I know that you ask this question all the time. Look what I have done. And he amazingly done something called sentiment analysis. So whatever the fintech says, it goes back, it's like a mirror, like a candlestick. You see if the news is matching to the performance of the company through the performance in the capital market, through other sources like peer-to-peer. You're actually 360-degree catching the information that this fintech claims, because I agree with you, in decentralized finance anyone can claim whatever they would like to claim.
Because the rating agencies play the main role in all this. So.
Yes, I agree with you. When it comes to sustainability, they have something called EcoVadis, in which they ensure that the ratings is accurate and legitimate. When it comes to Islamic finance, whenever I ask this question, they answer me one thing: it's still in infancy. It's still supposed to be decentralized finance. It is for those people who have high risk appetite. It is working to a certain extent. You just have to watch, the kind of the fatwa or the scholars and the ratings that that particular company gives you.
So wouldn't it, isn't there a gap between even the capital markets, the Islamic capital markets that also has to grow at the same pace, right?
Yes, yes, totally agree. It has to grow at the same pace. Specifically, if you are someone who is, there are different types of investors. If you have a reserved appetite, you would like to do your due diligence. If you have, I mean, who would have known that someone would buy crypto and after a few years it is like millions of dollars? Who would have known? Oh, for Visa exchange. So yes, it's a risk, and now it's the future. And it seems to me that with information nowadays, you can do your own search. But I am somehow feel that the investor should have reassurance. That's why my every question is on the rating agencies. So I
Thanks.
think it's work in progress.
Suppose now, because somebody has taken a loan or taken a finance from the Islamic finance, then one has to comply with the Syria compliant. Like one of
Yes.
these are the. If somebody has not complied, so what any sort of actions which finance company can take, or there are some provisions which they can take, that if they are not compliant, then how they are checking and something.
Yeah.
This what are the provisions which they check?
Very interesting question, Mr. Rabi. If they are not compliant, immediately the Sharia Supervisory Board doesn't accept, because any product is actually screened with the Sharia Supervisory Board. So there is no non-compliant product that is rolled out. But however, if the customer who wants to access the finance is the one who is doing a transaction that is non-Sharia compliant, it is red flagged. Having said that, I have to state a case in Bahrain in which a customer was able to spot something that is non Sharia compliant in the contract and went to the bank and told them, see, I have noted that you have not followed IOFI standards. So, what you are going to do? Are you going to give me the loan with the profit rate? Or I go and complain to Central Bank of Bahrain, which is, I think, called Monetary Authority over there. So what the bank did say, no, 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 don't do anything. Come here. We'll give you benevolent loan, what we call Qard al-Hasan. So this way they are setting off the mistake of not taking care of the compliance to the IOFI standards. At the end of the day, you have to follow them.
But my question is that from the lender point of view, like from the, suppose I am taking a loan from the Islamic bank,
Mm.
and I say that I will comply with for the working capital or anything which is required for the complying as a CA compliant. And post that, I use that money for other purpose.
Oh,
Then
well, with the Islamic banks, thank you for asking this question. Yes, with Islamic banks, they have a way to monitor you. So if you get the financing, it is usually for an asset. So there is, for instance, if I am a customer who wants to buy something, I go to the bank and tell them I want to buy a car. So a car is Sharia compliant by nature. Yeah. So there is no element of like making the aqd fasid. Like in continuation, it cannot be like invalid contract. They do a lot of monitoring and due diligence. Specifically, Islamic banks, a lot of documents they have to complete. Thank you so much. I hope I answered your question.
I have a question. Islamic finance is based on risk sharing and profit sharing. Then why, similar to mentioned banking, is a profit rate reviewed annually and increased? Why it can't be fixed?
Well, with reference to benchmarking the interest rate and profit rate, it is the most asked question. I agree with you. And there is a lot of articles and research on this particular aspect. Uh, remember that I did tackle this question a bit on the fact that the regulator insists on having, a unified rate. Otherwise, we don't want withdrawal risk. We don't want chaos in the market. Another thing is, when it comes to Islamic finance institutions, they are forming up at the moment. They are thinking of something called a profit rate OIC countries, in which they are viewing all of the OIC or Organization of Islamic Countries and, you know, benchmark a specific LIBOR rate, because now we are following LIBOR. Sharia scholars mentioned that there is no harm in following LIBOR at the moment, because it is considered to be a market rate for the demand and supply. So that's why it is pegged with the LIBOR rate. Otherwise, there is, initiatives to differentiate it, but again, with the permission of the regulator, because they are very particular about non-creation of withdrawal rate, having, people withdrawing their money at one of the banks just because they think the other bank cannot be done, and specifically in a market which is price sensitive. I hope I answered your question. Certainly, Dana Gas is one of the case studies that are really shook the Islamic finance market. It is mudaraba sukuk, and after a while, it is declared as non-Sharia compliant. And this is because of different market elements that played at the moment. So even when we had, a review on the sukuk market in Malaysia, what really differentiates the Islamic bond, the sukuk, is it has an asset-based characteristic. So if there is a default, you can end up with the asset. So when we have done a review on the sukuk market in Malaysia, we noticed that it is actually the asset is only there for the records. But when it comes to actual taking part of the asset, it is very hard for you to divide it and have it. And so there is a lot of criticism in which of the application of the sukuk. Yes, it is one case study, Danagas, that is really looked up by Sharia scholars, and they became very vigilant afterwards to not to create the issue once again. But I think, Dr. Rajesh, again, Islamic finance is very new compared to the conventional one. So we are learning as we go. The principles of it by nature is bringing the society together and the economy together, and it is in line with the sustainability movement. We are doing this already, the SDG integration, and also ESG declarations and reportings and disclosures. So all in all, I think that we are doing the best to ensure that the investor also gets a cut of it and the society is not left out of it. Remember, we are at a time in which we even have to calculate the CO2 and offset it. So this means it's a really different time than before. So I hope, Dr. Rajesh, that I have clarified this aspect of the development phase of Islamic finance.
I deal with many of the commercial banks. So I thought, okay, Islamic bank, definitely they will give me a better offer and everything. But end of the day, what I found out is Islamic bank rates, whether it is trade finance or whatever it is, different terms, profit share. But at end of the day, both are same, whether it is from the commercial bank or from Islamic bank. Then when I asked the Islamic bank people why, no, it is all regulation controlled. No, the regulator is there, so we cannot go below that because it will have an impact on the commercial banks. I said that is what we want. Let the Islamic bank reduce the rate, so the commercial banks will be forced to reduce the rate. No. We should play safe. That means that is just like the competition reduction for Omantel and Ooredoo. We have a competitor so that we will have competition and the rate will come down. But both are offering same rate which is offered by TRA. Then at the end of the day, what is the benefit for the end user?
Yeah.
From Omantel and Ooredoo, I get the same things. Okay, same platform. It's the same thing for your Vodafone also will be the same thing. Now, even here also, the Islamic banks and commercial banks, when you go through the details, I don't find any difference. It is one and same.
True.
Only thing is that names are different. Of course, I know that Islamic banks, there's in finance
Methodology.
certain activities. Okay. Because that is haram. Otherwise, same. All like the proverb, old wine in the same new bottle or something like that. It's the same thing. There's no
that's
difference.
what when I got that comment of the from where you pull the ear. I agree with you to a certain extent, but there is a methodology when it comes to the documentation. First of all, Islamic banks do not give cash, and second of all, Islamic banks do a screening, Sharia compliant. So meaning some activities do not come into the realm of Islamic banks. So that is two differences already between with the interest rate and profit rate, which is the most debatable aspect. I see this is the third question on this. Yes, I agree. But then that's why I am very interested in this, in crowdfunding. Because crowdfunding is when investments are truly happening. This is the venture capitalist model. It is not this is the venture capitalist model in which you go to Silicon Valley, you have an idea, you fund the idea, and you wait for the returns. You never know what will get picked up. I mean, today we did not expect the cryptocurrency, the asset, this digital asset inflation of prices. So crowdfunding is a very interesting notion. It builds the nation as well. It brings investors. It allows you to see the potential in the market, and you make it is very documented. So you have a very sound decision before you embark into this investment opportunity. And it's coming in Oman, as I said. The company already set up. The regulation of the capital market authority is set up. I think this is the true differentiation between conventional versus Islamic, is when you are actually into the risk sharing model and you accept the fact that you will lose or you will gain. I hope I answered your question. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fatin, for such an enriching learning. You have taken us through the complete framework of Islamic fintech, from the terms, concepts, the evolution, the process about crowdfunding, blockchain, even the examples that you have given from different countries, Malaysia, Indonesia, and the case studies were very easily understandable. And with the particular perspective to Oman is very much appreciated. Thank you so much. As a token of appreciation from Muscat ICI chapter, may I request Chairman of Legal and Compliance Committee, CA Unmesh Bhome, to kindly felicitate Dr. Fatin for such an amazing session. Now, I request CA Gaurav Kapoor, Chairman of Student Affairs and PD Committee of Muscat ICI Chapter, to appraise us on the 21st World Congress of Accountants happening in Mumbai, the financial capital of India, later this year.
Good evening, everyone, and greetings once again from the Managing Committee of Muscat Chapter of ICI. I know it's quite late, especially for those who have already been fasting, and although we had a small break. So I'll not take much of your time. And since Dr. Rajesh started with the history, so I will also give you a bit more background on how World Congress of Accountants started way back in 1904. It was an irregular event that was happening across without any set pattern, without having any organization leading it, etc., etc. But then it was more formally formalized in 1952, and then the regular meetings used to happen after every 5 years. And then it was in 2002 when the International Federation for Accountants, who is the overall governing body of all the accounting professions across the globe, took over, and the meetings were more regularly starting to happen every 4 years. And therefore, it is now also known as the Olympics of the accounting profession. USA, United Kingdom, Japan, Turkey, France, Germany, China, not Russia yet. I don't think Russia is in the list. Let me reconfirm. No, it's not there. Mexico are amongst the 12 countries who have hosted World Congress of Accountants till today. And India, for the first time, and the 13th country in the world, will be hosting this in November 2022. I think it's a proud moment for each one of us sitting here who has been associated with the accounting profession in one way or the other. I'm sure, and all of us, or most of us, are aware of Atithi Devo Bhava. And I'm sure whoever goes and visits India during this time will have a unique and a life memorable experience of listening approximately or interacting approximately more than 6,000 delegates from more than 130 countries. Therefore, on behalf of the Muscat chapter, I request each one of you to go to the website of World Congress of Accountants and register yourself for this event, which is happening from 18th of November to 21st of November in Mumbai, India. If you have any issues in registering, the managing committee is here. We are always there to help you. And not only to register yourself, we also request if you have any sponsors for the event, we are there to help you and guide you. And we most welcome any sponsorship for those events as well. Thank you and have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Gauravji. I would take this opportunity to just let you know that our next event is on evolving or changing role of finance in digital era. It is happening on 23rd of April on virtual mode because many of the speakers and panelists would be joining from different locations. I request all of you to kindly make the best use of it, and the details would be shared soon. Now I request CA Sajeev Surendran, Vice Chairman of Muscat ICI chapter, to formally conclude this enriching learning event.
Thank you, Sangeeta ji. After having the history of the chapter and the World Congress from Dr. Rajesh Naik and Gaurav ji, let's talk about today. A good start is half done. Yes, we did it today after 25 months of a long awaiting period. Today we had a very good start. Three things which I observed today: the smiling face, the moral energy and enthusiasm, and we spend more time for interaction and networking, which is a good start. And thank you everyone for setting up a momentum for Muscat chapter to continue our activity as in the past. And I take this opportunity to congratulate everyone for having this opportunity after 25 months. And I formally get into my duty. I take this opportunity on behalf of Muscat chapter managing committee members and the members to give sincere gratitude to College of Banking and Financial Studies for supporting us and helping us in renewing our MOU. The first MOU, which was signed on 14th of January 2008, coincidentally the day I landed in Oman. And from there, 14th chairman, Ravi Diora, signed the MOU on 31st of March, which was a great day for all of us after having 2 years of virtual and few months of no activity of chapter due to delay in signing the MOU. We just started our event today physically. And thank you for permitting us to start the event physically by the CBFS. I take this opportunity to thank Dr. Kalfan Al-Bawani, Chairman, Dr. Sahran Al-Salti, the Dean of CBFS, Dr. Rajesh Naik for the Director Training and Education, and Dr. Fatin for their continued support to the chapter and to the members of the chapter. Also, I take this opportunity to thank ICA Delhi for their support and all their guidance to complete this formality for the benefit of the profession and the members of the chapter. And the one important thing which we should always remember, the contribution of all the past chairpersons of Muscat chapter, all the chairpersons of Muscat chapter, they brought forward to support us in the challenging time, which was really helpful for us to complete the formalities, though it was delayed, but in a great fashion. Thank you everyone for joining us to help us in completing these formalities. Also, I take the support of all the members of Muscat chapter in completing this formality of signing off the MOU on time. And as I earlier mentioned, this day we made it to have a great start for all of us, all of you. We thank you for joining us and spending quality time on behalf of the members of Managing Committee. Thank you so much. And for Al Falaj, for their continued support, having nice snacks and having good dinner. I hope so.